Professor Namita Rajput in Department of Commerce, Sri Aurobindo College, University of Delhi. In the ongoing series of corporate governance, today we will be talking on the global methods and models of the corporate governance. So let's start with the family-owned model of corporate governance. It is characterized by a business predominantly controlled and managed by the individual families or closely connected group of families. And this model is widespread globally, particularly in the regions such as Asia, Middle East, Latin America, and the parts of Europe, encompassing a range of enterprises from small operations to large multinational organizations. These family-led firms are pivotal to the global economy, significantly contributing to a job creation and the GDP. Now, the leadership positions are often held by the family members, which can streamline the decision-making process but might limit the broader stakeholder engagement. Now, next is your long-term orientation. There is a strong emphasis on sustainability and growth over the generations in the family-owned model, rather than focusing solely on the immediate financial returns. This perspective is driven by a desire to pass a lasting legacy to the future generations. There is a personal relationship and the loyalty, which is another feature of the family-owned model of corporate governance. Now, these businesses frequently value the loyalty and the personal connections, fostering a dedicated workplace culture. However, this can lead to the challenges like nepotism. And the next characteristic of a family-owned corporate governance model is a management flexibility. The absence of a pressure from the external shareholder allows for a agile management and adaptation to a new opportunities or the market challenges. Next is your privacy. Especially for those not publicly listed, there is a tendency towards discretion, which may reduce the transparency available to the external parties. Next is your economic impact. The family-owned enterprises form an essential part of economy, driving the employment, innovation, and contributing to the overall GDP. Next is your market stability. Now, their forward-looking approach often results in economic steadiness, as these entities may avoid drastic measures like large-scale layoffs during the economic downturns. Next feature is your community ties. Many such businesses are deeply integrated into their localities, supporting through charitable acts, community service, and initiatives aimed at the local development. So, without citing some special examples, it's notable that this model spans the various industries worldwide, from the retail giants and the technology conglomerates to the luxury automobile manufacturers and the global hospitality chains. Now, as far as the application in the various sectors is concerned, these entities often a balanced tradition and innovation, steering a global market while maintaining the family values at their core. And in this sector, like the customer goods, automobile, technology, and hospitality, family-owned business leverage their unique governance structures to innovate and expand internationally. They navigate the market challenges with a blend of traditional values and the modern business strategies, emphasizing the quality, customer loyalty, and the brand legacy. The family-owned model offers a distinct approach to the corporate governance, intertwining the personal commitment with a vision for the long-term profitability and the prospects. While facing the internal challenges, like a succession planning and the risk of the nepotism, these businesses also embody resilience, a commitment to the community and stability, and a capacity for a sustained innovation. Now, understanding this model dynamics is very crucial for the stakeholders across the spectrum, from the investors to the customers, as these enterprises continue to shape the global economic landscape. The family-owned model of corporate governance, while offering us several advantages like a long-term stability and strong value systems, also presents a distinct limitation. Now, these challenges, they can actually affect the sustainability, growth, and professional management of these businesses. Though these limitations are actually, one of them is a succession planning. One of the most significant challenges is ensuring a smooth leadership transition from one generation to another. So, there is a lack of a clear succession plan which can actually lead to the conflicts within the family, affecting the business stability and the future. There's another problem of professional management. So balancing the family control with the need for the professional management can be very, very difficult. So there may be a resistance to the hiring external executives or a lack of willingness to delegate the authority to non-family members, potentially hindering the business professionalization and the growth. The next is your nepotism. The prioritizing family ties over the merit in hiring and promotion decisions can actually lead to inefficiency and dissatisfaction among the non-family employee. So this practice can actually compromise the quality of management and overall business performance. Next is your emotional decision making. Emotional attachments and the interpersonal family dynamics can sometimes overshadow the rational business decision making. This can lead to suboptimal decisions that serve a business and the family interest, overall company's best interest. The next is your limited access to the capital. The family-owned business may be reluctant to seek external financing or to go public due to a desire to maintain and control over the business. This can limit their access to the capital, hampering the growth and expansion opportunities. The next is your resistance to change. A strong emphasis on tradition and legacy can actually make some family-owned business resistant to change, affecting their ability to innovate and adapt to the new market conditions or the technological advancements. The next is your risk of the family conflicts. The business dispute can actually escalate into a personal conflict among the family members, which can be detrimental to the business. Resolving these conflicts can be challenging and may require external, the mediation. Next is your governance and transparency issues. In some of the cases, there is a lack of a clear governance structures and the policies leading to transparency issues. This can affect the stakeholders' trust and the ability to attract the external investments. So despite these challenges, many family-owned businesses thrive by finding some ways to mitigate these limitations, like establishing a clear governance structures, engaging in succession planning, and balancing the family and professional management. So overcoming these hurdles, as far as the family-owned model of the corporate governance is concerned, is very crucial for ensuring the long-term success and sustainability of the family-owned enterprises. The state influence model of corporate governance refers to the system where the government has a very significant impact on how the companies are controlled and managed. Now, this influence can be direct through the ownership stakes in the companies or indirect through regulations, policies and appointment of the government representatives to the corporate board. This model is prevalent in the various countries around the world, particularly in those where the government aims to guide the economic development, overall protect the strategic industries and ensure the provision of essential services. The government ownership or control. The government owns the significant shares in the key companies, especially in the sectors considered strategic or of national importance or economic development such as energy, telecommunication and transportation. One of the characteristics of the government-owned corporate governance model is a regulatory influence. The government may exert influence through regulatory bodies, shaping the business practices and industry standards. Next is your strategic direction. The state may set the strategic directions for the companies to align with the national economic goals, like promoting the innovation, securing the energy resources, or achieving the social objectives. The next feature of the government-owned corporate governance model is the appointment of the board members. The government often have the authority to appoint the representatives to the board of companies, ensuring the alignment with the broader economic or the strategic objectives. Next is your economic stability. By influencing or controlling the key sectors, the government can ensure the stability and security of the national economy, especially in the critical areas like energy and finance. The next is your strategic objectives. The model allows the government to pursue the broader strategic objectives like economic diversification, technological advancement, and the national security. The next is your social welfare. The state influence can ensure that the companies contribute to the social welfare goals like the employment generation, infrastructure development, and access to the essential services. This model is applied in the various forms around the world, with the differences based on extent of the government involvement and the specific sectors targeted. So, in some countries, the government maintains the control of the entire industries, while in others it may hold a certain specific stakes in the range of the key companies, and the applications include the national oil companies. Many countries have the national oil companies that play a very crucial role in the energy sector and the national economy. Next sector where this particular model is applicable is your telecommunications. The government may control the major telecommunication firms to ensure the national security and the universal service provision. The next key sector in which this particular model can be applied is your transportation and infrastructure. The state-owned enterprises often operate in transportation and infrastructure to maintain the strategic control and ensure the public access. The next is your efficiency concerns. The state-influenced companies may face less competitive pressures, potentially leading to inefficiencies and lower the productivity compared to a private sector firms. The next is your political interference. The decision-making may be subject to a political considerations, leading to a suboptimal business decision that prioritize the political objectives over the economic performance. The next is your financial performance. This is one of the major limitations of the government-owned corporate governance model. Now, these companies may not always be driven by profitability, which can affect their financial sustainability and burden the state with the unprofitable entities. The next limitation relating to the state-owned corporate governance model is your innovation and flexibility. The government control can sometimes stifle the innovation and reduce the flexibility as the bureaucratic process replaces the market-driven decision making. So, despite the limitations which we have discussed, the state-influenced model, they play a very critical role in many of the economies, especially in ensuring the provision of essential services and achieving the strategic objectives. Now, balancing the benefits of the government involvement with the need for the efficacy and efficiency and the market competitiveness, it remains a key challenge for the countries which are adopting this model. Let's move on to the next model, that is the Nordic corporate governance model. Now, this Nordic model, which is prevalent in the countries like Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland, it combines the elements of Anglo-American and the continental European models of the corporate governance. But it also features the unique aspects that reflect the Nordic region's social and economic values. One of the key characteristics of the Nordic model is the active shareholders. Like the Anglo-American model, the Nordic model features the active ownership. However, unlike the dispersed ownership common in the Anglo-American model, the Nordic companies, they have a very few large shareholders, including the families, state, and the institutional investors who play a significant role in the governance. Next is your board structure. The companies typically have a single-tier board system that includes both the executive and the non-executive directors. However, what sets the Nordic system apart is the emphasis on the consensus and the inclusion of the employee representatives on the board in some countries which are similar to the German co-determination models. The next key characteristics of a Nordic model is a transparency and accountability. The Nordic model emphasizes the transparency, ethical business practices, and the corporate responsibilities. The companies are expected to operate transparently and be accountable to the shareholders and the wider community. Next is your stakeholder involvement. The company's responsibility towards the shareholder is emphasized. There's a strong focus on the other stakeholders, including the employees, customers, and the broader community, which reflects the region's societal values of inclusiveness and the social welfare. The next is your sustainability and the long-term planning. The Nordic model focuses on the consensus and the broad stakeholder involvement, fosters a long-term approach to the business planning and sustainability. The next important point relating to this Nordic model is high standards of transparency. The emphasis on transparency and accountability, it helps in building the trust amongst the investors, customers and the public, contributing to a stable and attractive investment environment. The next is your innovation and competitiveness. Despite or perhaps because of the consensus approach, the Nordic region is known for high levels of innovation and the competitiveness in the global market. Next is your challenges in the rapid decision making. The emphasis on the consensus and the stakeholder involvement can sometimes slow down the decision making process, potentially hindering the agility in fast moving industries. The next is your potential for conflict. The model attempts to balance the interest of multiple stakeholders, which can lead to conflicts, particularly in the situations where stakeholder interest may diverge from those of other stakeholders. So the Nordic corporate governance model, it stands out for its balanced approach, emphasizing the ethical practices, stakeholder involvement, and the long-term sustainability. While it shares the characteristics with the other model, its unique blend of features reflects the socio-economic values of the Nordic countries, contributing to their reputation for high levels of social welfare, transparency and business efficacy. So this hybrid corporate governance model, which blends the elements from the various traditional governance model to suit the specific needs and circumstances of a company or a country. The hybrid model is not strictly defined like Anglo-American, continental or state-owned models. Instead, it represents a more adaptable approach, reflecting a globalized nature of the modern business and need for flexibility in the governance practices. Now, the diverse ownership practices, the hybrid model can accommodate a mix of ownership, including the family ownership, state ownership, institutional investors and the public stakeholders. This diversity allows for a broader range of influences on the corporate governance. The next is your flexible board structures. The companies may adopt a single-tier board system, a two-tier system, or a variation that involves the elements of both tailored to the needs of the companies and its stakeholders. The stakeholder involvement, while some of the model prioritize the stakeholder value, that is the Anglo-American, or the broader stakeholder interest, that is the continental European model, the hybrid model seeks a balance, recognizing the importance of various stakeholders, including the employees, customers, suppliers, and the community, in addition to the shareholders. Next is your regulatory compliance and the best practices. The hybrid governance model adapt to the local and international regulations and incorporate a global best practices, striving for a balance between the compliance, performance, and the ethical considerations. The next is your adaptability. The hybrid model primacy advantages to its adaptability, allowing the company to navigate the complexities of operating in the multiple jurisdictions and adapting to the changing market conditions. The next is your global competitiveness. By integrating the diverse governance practices, the companies can enhance their competitiveness on the global stage, attracting the international investors and the partners. Next is your innovation. The flexibility of the hybrid model can foster the innovation in the governance practices, encouraging the companies to find the novel solutions to the governance challenges. Next is your complexity. The blend of the different governance elements together can actually lead to increased complexity in the governance structures, potentially making the decision making very, very cumbersome. Next is your identity and consistency issues. The companies may struggle with maintaining a very clear governance identity or a consistent practices, which can actually affect the stakeholder trust and the confidence. Next is your regulatory challenges. Navigating the multiple regulatory environments can actually be very challenging, especially when the practices acceptable in one jurisdiction conflict with those of the other. Now, coming on to the application part. The hybrid model is often seen in multinational corporations that operate across the different jurisdictions, each with its own governance norms and the regulations. Now, these companies need to be very flexible in their governance to align with the local practices while maintaining a consistency with their core governance practices. Additionally, the industry is undergoing the rapid change of facing the unique regulatory challenges. It may adopt the hybrid governance practices to navigate these complexities effectively. This model reflects the reality of many modern businesses that operate in a globalized environments. It underscores the importance of flexibility, adaptability, and integration of diverse governance practices to meet the evolving need of companies and their stakeholders. Now, there are some emerging market models. This model has evolved in response to unique challenges and the characteristics of the emerging economies, where the institutional framework, market dynamics, stakeholder relationships can actually differ significantly from those in more developed countries. The emerging model encompasses a variety of practices and the structure, often influenced by the local, cultural, economic, and the legal context. One of the characteristics of this model is a concentrated ownership. Unlike the dispersed in the other models in the developed countries, firms in the emerging markets often featured the concentrated ownership. This can actually include a dominant family ownership, state-owned ownership, or control by a small group of investors, which significantly influences the governance practices. There is a family and a personal relationship in this particular model. There is a role of the state also. The state may also play a very dominant and a predominant role in the economy, not just as a regulator, but also as the owner and the market participant. There is an informal governance mechanism. In the absence of a strong legal and regulatory frameworks, informal mechanisms based on trust, reputation, relationship often play a critical role in the governance. Then it has an adaptation to the market imperfections, navigating the uncertainties, leveraging the local knowledge. So, this is one of the prime importance of this model, that it helps in leveraging the local knowledge, emphasizing the local networks, and the knowledge allows the business to exploit the opportunities and overcome the challenges unique to the emerging economies. There is an economic development. By tailoring the governance practices to the local context, the business can actually contribute more effectively to economic development, fostering the entrepreneurship, innovation, and job creation. The next is your corporate transparency and accountability. Concentrated ownership and resilience and the reliance on the informal mechanisms can actually lead to the challenges in transparency and accountability, potentially deterring the international investors. Risk of corruption is also very strong in this regard, and there is a challenge in attracting the foreign investments. This model is prevalent in the various sectors across the emerging economies, from manufacturing, telecommunication to financial and the natural resources. Now, let's see the last part of it, that is the application. The companies operating within these frameworks often have to balance the local practices with the need to align with the international governance standards, especially when seeking to attract the foreign partners or the investors. The emerging model of the corporate governance highlighting the adaptability and resilience of the business operating in these regions. It underscores the importance of understanding the local context and developing the governance practices, and can navigate the complexities of the emerging economies effectively. Thank you so much.